Hey there YouTube, Toy Customizer Wake Angel 2001 here. Now during my Antoine de Coulette custom video, I offhandedly mentioned that it might be fun if I reviewed some Sonic comics. The results in the comments section? Yes, we'd love to see that, do it. So, thanks to your encouragement, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to review not just one Sonic comic, but a story arc. Specifically one of the most recent ones, the Worlds Collide crossover between Sonic and Mega Man. But I realized that as I was thinking about what I would say during the review, I would run into a bunch of talking points which would bog the review itself down. It would feel like I was saying unnecessary things because they weren't relevant to the story at hand. But they would have to be mentioned in order to get context for my opinions. So, I figured I would get those talking points out of the way in this little prologue video here. So all those talking points are about crossovers. Yes, crossovers basically print money. I mean, people love to see crossovers. I mean, look, right here, my video game collection, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racer, frickin' Super Smash Brothers, one of the most popular video game franchises ever. And, even if the crossover is limited to just one character from a different franchise making a cameo, even that can be considered to be a huge event. Of course, there's tons of examples of from video games that I don't have, like the Capcom Versus games, or how you could play as Freddy Krueger in Mortal Kombat, DC versus Mortal Kombat, all those things. Those are great. People love crossovers. And this brings me to the downside. As of the time of this recording, about 2 weeks ago, Linkara was doing a review of the New 52 crossover special, The Culling. Now, I'm not really going to get into it too specific on his review, because you can just go to thatguywiththeglasses.com, look up Linkara's Atop the Fourth Wall show and watch the review yourself. I'd highly recommend it because he's great. He's been doing this for like 3 or 4 years, so he knows a lot better than I do. But he did come across one important thing. One of the reasons why The Culling was bad was because the crossover was between the Teen Titans and the Legion, and at the time that it happened, both those comics had been running for only about 10 months. That neither comic really had time to establish its universe or come up with a solid status quo for how the characters would interact with each other, especially if they're going to start interacting with people from a different franchise. So when you think, now I'm getting all flubby. Sorry. I'm going to leave this in. It makes it feel authentic. So what I'm trying to say, what he was saying, is that when you make a crossover, you have to make sure that your continuity is well established so that your characters will interact with each other very naturally. I think the best example would be the Avengers movie. It was one of the most successful movies of all time, one of the highest grossing ever. I think James Cameron's Avatar, Titanic, maybe one of the Transformers movies. I think those are the only ones that actually grossed more than this movie in all of cinema history. But there's a reason why it was so great. I mean, think about it. The Avengers movie is a massive crossover with like 7 heroes in it. So you can't just, you can't just make that off the bat. It started like half a decade ago when they made Iron Man. And at the very end, they teased us just a little bit with the Avengers Initiative, with an appearance of Samuel L. Jackson as Eye Patch McAwesome Guy. Oh man, people are going to lynch me for forgetting his name. Sorry. I'm terrible with names and I'm kind of on the spot now. But yeah, over the next several years, we were getting new movies. We get the Hulk, which had Tony Stark make a cameo appearance at the end. Then we had Iron Man 2, which introduced us to Black Widow and showed us a brief glimpse of something that looked like a prototype Captain America shield. And then we had the Thor movie where we had we were given a brief glimpse at Hawkeye, and we're shown the larger Shield organization. Oh yeah, back in the Hulk, they also mentioned the super soldier serum, which culminated in the Captain America movie, establishing the Tesseract, which would be the MacGuffin that everyone's fighting over in the Avengers movie. So when the Avengers movie itself came out, we didn't need anything explained to us. We already knew these characters, how they would interact with each other, and all that was left was to do it. We needed very little exposition. All the characters were introduced to us, so we could just get into the action, and it was awesome. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, because it was about 2 years ago at New York City Comic Con, and in the Archie Comics Action Panel, where Ian Flynn and the rest of the crew from the Archie Comics, they announced that they would be making a Mega Man comic. To uproarious applause from the audience. We were all psyched. And of course, when the Q&A period came up, the first question asked was, will they be doing a crossover with Sonic? I mean, yeah, the comic hadn't even come out yet, and we're already begging for crossovers. But the thing is, those writers were smart. They said that they wanted to establish things. They wanted to make sure that the Mega Man concept would work. They wanted to establish its universe and give it its own canon. They wanted to make it like the Sonic comic, just distinct enough from the video games that it has its own identity. And it wasn't until next Comic-Con that they announced Worlds Collide with a big poster showing Sonic and Mega Man standing back to back. Then we roared. But even then, the crossover didn't happen right away. It didn't start until late March or early April the following year. So, but they were still hyping this up. Like, the issues themselves started to have little countdowns to the World Collide crossover. And let me tell you, it was all worth it. But, because by the time the comic crossover started, we already knew everything. We knew how the worlds would be intersecting with each other, thanks to setup from the Sonic Genesis and things that had been happening in the Mega Man comic about wonky-tonky time travel stuff. I mean, even Mega Man's 20th anniversary, they had a special issue that showed all kinds of crazy time traveling canoodling, which turned out to be a milk run for the Genesis wave. It was actually quite brilliant the way that, just like in the Avengers movie, this amazing crossover, there it is, Sonic and Mega Man standing back to back, this crossover was actually mature enough, despite huge fan event. This would have sold as an event to anyone, myself included, from Mega Man issue number 1. I mean, if Mega Man started like this, it would have sold. They would have sold millions. But that might have not been the best idea, because just like with the culling, if the Mega Man universe wasn't as well established as Sonic, then it would just get absorbed into it, and we wouldn't be able to appreciate it as a separate entity. They were smart enough that when they made this crossover, to first establish everything about Mega Man, so that when the crossover actually happened, all they had to do was the crossover. There was very little need for any kind of exposition. And that is what makes the Worlds Collide crossover so great. So, I'm going to be reviewing all 12 issues of Worlds Collide, which actually cross over 3 comic book series: the Sonic the Hedgehog comic, the Sonic Universe comic, and Mega Man. So they got 12 issues out in 4 months. Which is another good thing, because then we didn't feel like we were just getting this tiny little bit of story each month. With 3 issues to read each month, there was so much action going on. They could really flesh things out. And unlike the culling, which was just 4 issues of a fight scene. And okay, that's the last I'm going to mention of the culling. Watch Linkara's review for more information about the culling. Okay, so the format of my review will be taking 1 month's worth of issues at a time. So I'll be covering 3 comics per review video. So the first one is going to start, of course, with Mega Man issue 24, Worlds Collide number 1. See you then. Nick Fury. His name is Nick Fury. There. Assuming you watch past the credits, you won't have to mention it in the comment section. I'm gonna use that as a test. If you're telling me the guy's name in the comment section, I know you didn't watch the video to the end.